Everyone, it's Dr. Judith Browse, and welcome back to another episode of the Your Guide to Book Publishing podcast. And a lot of times I don't have authors on to talk about their books unless they're experts in writing or design or fill in the blank. But every once in a while we have an author on, and that's what we're going to be doing today because his journey is a fabulous one that started when he retired to now signing a contract for a movie. So we're going to go through that, but let's start like we always do. I start with a quote from my book, Snappy, Sassy, Salty, and Success for Authors and Writers. So 400 of my quotes. But let's start this. Look in the mirror. No one but the author knows the depths of what a book is about and can do. You are the voice of marketing. So with that said, we always like to thank our sponsors. Nick Zillinger from NZ Graphics has been with us since the show started a gazillion years ago. Nick is a wonderful book designer and happened to do the designing and the cover for our guests today. And you'll find him at nzgraphics.com. And then also Rebecca Finkel from FTGD, who is also a fabulous multi-award-winning book designer, and she makes the ultimate swag stuff to go with displays, from runners to those giant pull-up banners to other goodies, and the one sheets you all need, and she just does a stellar job. So thank you to them. And with that, let's jump into who we have. You can see Steve Snyder. Steve Snyder, and when he retired back 16 years ago now, he retired. He decided he was going to roll up his sleeves because he has a pedigree in marketing and sales, and he was going to find out what happened. What was his father doing during the war? His father became a hero, and out of the research, over 4 years of heavy duty research, they took him out of the United States, of course, because he was shot down in Europe. That he probably knows more people in Belgium than a lot of the natives that live there at this point, I think. And out of it came Shot Down, which I had the pleasure to also work on. And it was, I remember as we were working on the opening chapters, and Steve, I can still feel it as we were working on the rewrites of the plane going down and the flames coming up in the cockpit. I could feel them around my neck. And over 2,000 viewers on Amazon have also felt them all around their neck. And the book came out. It's won over 24 book awards and recognition. It's sold a gazillion copies. And this year he signed a contract with the Sam Houston. We'll talk about that a little bit. With out of Texas, because Sam Houston has to be out of Texas, and they are going to produce the World War II drama Shot Down. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Judith. I really appreciate it. You guided me through that early process when I didn't know what I was doing, and our efforts turned out to be pretty successful.
I often talk about you because I wanted to really talk about the journey, and we started with who was the reader, who was the reader, and it's military people who are World War II followers and gobble up the super fans from World War II. And to Steve's credit, he really concentrated that. He's been consistent with that. And Steve, I mean, if I recall correctly, we started with some museums, military-related museums and places. Is that right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I started lots of places actually, but
Up in the air, all up in the air.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, I came from a sales and marketing background, so really, what I was doing my whole career, I did when after writing the book, instead of promoting, something on my career job, I was promoting, the story and the memories and the book.
Right.
So I just contacted basically anyone who might read the book or review the book or promote the book. And as you mentioned, aviation museums who have gift stores and sell books, and their gift stores was one of them. So I'm in, I don't know, a couple dozen of the largest air museums in the United States. The World War II Museum down in New Orleans, the Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, the Mighty Eighth Museum in Savannah, Georgia, and many others. So that's turned out to be a good spot for me. And then I started doing PowerPoint presentations to all sorts of groups, not just military, but service organizations, retiree organizations, because also the target market is the baby boomers, because they had relatives who served in the war, the 8th Air Force, uncles, grandfathers or what have you. And so they're a good target audience as well. And so,
and they buy books, and they buy books.
and they buy books. Yeah, yeah. They're second generation for the most part, from those guys who actually fought the war. So they buy, books that you can hold in your hand, which is nice. But I found more and more, especially people on LinkedIn, they like audiobooks. It's you go different places, and they like ebooks or audiobooks. So you kind of get to know what people like. But it changed my life writing this book. It has been such a wonderful adventure. I still work on it and every day, and it's just an absolute joy because it's my passion.
It is. Well, I remember as we were getting ready to have a book in hand, and you planned this major trip. And I remember saying, we're going to launch it in Belgium first. And that's exactly what you did. So, and you jump into, so I wanted to, let's see if I can do a quick show to everyone. If we can get you on, everyone, you're seeing my screen, but I just show, this is the book. I want you all to see. This is actually Steve's Amazon page. So we have, and he's going to get into the story now of the B-17. Steve always knew he wanted that picture. This is his dad, Howard, here on the far right lower.
No, the
I
lower
learned
left,
from
lower left.
lower left, but as we look at it, it looks like our lower right. So you look at the screen here. Yeah, that he's on the left is coming out. He definitely is on the left, but when we're looking at it, he's on the right. Do you see what I'm saying? Your dad is the guy with the captain's hat, the
No, on
lieutenant.
the left. You have to go to the left.
Oh, okay. So,
There he is.
over here.
Yeah.
Oh, and I always thought it was your dad who was on the far right. Okay. All right. So there we are. So there's your dad. Well, he does look like you, Steve, so I should know better. But I want you all to notice that that I don't know if we could get away with doing this cover with a burning plane going down now, Steve. I don't know with all the folks out there if we could have gotten away with that.
It's funny
Um,
that you bring that up, Judith,
mhm,
because I contacted a lot of the bookstores that are at airports.
mhm.
Um, and there's one big one now, the name of it slips my mind, that's in a lot of airports, but I contacted them and they said, Steve, I'm sorry, but we just can't have a cover photo of a book in our store showing an airplane being shot down. It's going to, make people all nervous getting on the plane. So I'm sorry, we can't carry it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would disagree because there's significant difference between a commercial airline and a
Yeah.
military plane.
Yeah, I guess
Um,
they have strict rules or something. I don't know.
well, and things have gotten tougher. I will tell you, things are gotten tougher on that. But if you will all notice that in going up here very quickly, he's got over 2,000 reviews. It's very cool going on with that. So I'm going to stop the share, but it's done remarkably well, and he's gone from to a newbie author to a well-established speaker. He even speaks at the Air Force Academy now. And what are the topics you go in there? You're telling the story of the book, or what are you talking about when you're at the Air Force Academy?
Well, it kind of starts out how I came to write the book,
Uh-huh.
and go into my father's, pilot training, and then kind of follow him, to England with him and his crew, and then
Hmm.
talking about what bombing missions, flying combat missions were like. So I talk a lot about the air war over Europe, and then I go into what happened after he was shot down and bailed out of the plane and his adventures on the ground. And then I kind of end it with a tribute to veterans. So it's not only to promote the book, but it's just to try to communicate and educate the public about what it was like, the horror and the chaos and the terror of flying those planes. There are more men lost in the 8th Air Force than the entire Marine Corps fighting in the Pacific. And
Whoa.
being a combat crewman in the 8th Air Force was the most dangerous duty assignment in the United States military during World War II. And so
So
people don't realize that, and that's what I try to get across.
right. So your father was a captain. There was a total of 11 on the crew, if I right
10,
remember. Is that correct? Including
10,
him?
10.
Right. 10. Right. And when they were shot down by the Nazis over Belgium on that, they all survived, but one was that, do I remember that right? You're gonna have to correct me because some of my stats are off.
2 of the crew died in the plane when they were attacked by 2 German fighters.
Okay.
And then the
So
other bailed out.
so they bailed out, they came down, and then that's where the story really takes off.
Yeah, the first
And
half of the book builds up to the day the plane was shot down, and then the second half is
mhm.
all about what took place in Belgium on the ground.
So your father came down, and did he land in a tree? Did he land on the ground?
Yeah, I came down and some trees and his parachute got hung up on the branches and he was dangling 20 feet off the ground and couldn't get down. But fortunately
Hmm.
for him, a couple of young Belgian men, Henri Franken and Raymond Dervan, came to his rescue before the Germans got there. They
Hmm.
helped him down from the tree, and they told him to stay put. They thought it was too dangerous to move him during daylight with German patrols combing the area. But that night they came back and got him, took him to the Devan farmhouse. He just stayed there one night because those German patrols were still in the area. So the second night,
Hmm.
a Belgian customs officer, Paul Tilcan, came on a tandem bicycle to take him to a safer location. And after that, he was just moved from place to place to place. How long he stayed in any given location depended on how brave the Belgian people were who lived there and how dangerous the Belgium underground thought it was for him to stay there. It might spend one night, it might spend 6 weeks. And so he did that for several months and had close calls of almost being discovered by the Germans, which are in the book. And then usually when airmen were shot down and the underground picked them up, they tried to get them back to England through various escape routes, down through France, over the Pyrenees into Spain, and then out through British-controlled Gibraltar. But something always went wrong trying to get my dad out. And finally, he became really frustrated, just hiding and, almost getting discovered. So he decided to get back in the fight and joined the French resistance and started sabotaging German
There you go.
convoys.
Revenge.
Right. And they had several exciting encounters with the German convoys that are described in the book. And then finally, 7 months after he was shot down, words came that there were U.S. troops in a nearby village of Trelone, France, who would come up through France after D-Day. And he met up with them and then got back to England.
Well, but your father did something unique when he was in the underground, if you recall. And he didn't speak, right? So his voice couldn't be heard by Germans.
Well, they gave him a false identification card that said he was mute and
Mm-hmm.
deaf. So, because he would ride on, moving him around. Sometimes he'd go on bicycles, the trains, buses. Uh, so, and there was a time that he was with some helpers and he was on a train and the German came up and started talking to my dad, and then he started coughing, and then one of his helpers said, he can't speak, and then fortunately, though, the Germans got off at the next stop, so it didn't really escalate at all. But yeah,
Spooky.
there's a lot of close calls that he had. But the book's
Mhm.
not about just about my dad, but goes into detail about what happened to each member of the crew. Because about anything that could happen to a bomber crew happened to my dad's crew, and some of their stories ended up happily, but some of them ended up tragically.
One thing I loved about your reveal early on in the book, how the Susan Ruth got its name. You want to share that with the group? Because I didn't know how that process is,
Yeah.
how planes got named.
Well, as you mentioned, my dad was, the first pilot and the commander of the plane, excuse me, and the crew. And of the 10-man crew, there were 3 that were married, but my dad was the only one that had a child, and named Susan Ruth. And she was 1 year old at the time that my dad went overseas to England. So he named the plane after my oldest sister, uh, Susan Ruth, and that's how that plane got the name. The crews kind of got together, but the commander of the plane, the pilot, since I think he was the only one that had a little girl, that they just went along with that. So he was very proud of that. And the plane was
Yeah.
always known as the Susan Ruth. And in Belgium, it's the memorial. They built a memorial to my dad and his crew in 1989. It's the Susan Ruth Memorial. And in Belgium, they always
Mm.
talk about the Susan Ruth. And my dad was the pilot of the Susan Ruth.
He indeed he was. So when you started your research, and you're starting to gather, what was the trigger that opened up the people who live there to start sharing information with you about your dad?
Okay. Well, a couple different things. One, my parents had kept a lot of material from the war years, and I wanted to go through that and organize it and learn more details. And my dad had written a diary about his plane being shot down while he was missing in action, which is
Hmm.
absolutely riveting. And that my dad must have been a pretty good writer himself.
Mm.
Uh, and then, but the other item that was amazing were all the letters that my mother kept that my dad had written to her while he was stationed in England. And he was really candid in these letters. He talked about what bombing missions were like, what life was like on the air base, what life was like in London and England at the time, escapades of him and his crew. And it was just fascinating. And that's really what triggered uh, me to learn more and get to the point where, because I had no intention of writing a book at all, but after reading all these letters, and then I said, maybe I have to write a book. But as you alluded to about the Belgian people,
Mhm.
1984, a Belgian man, Paul Delahaye, who was a young boy during the war and greatly affected by it. His father was a schoolmaster and was thrown in prison for a while. But he became a local historian. He interviewed, along with another Belgian man who was a young boy, Jacques Lowe. And they
Mhm.
interviewed all these Belgian people who were about the war and who were in the Belgian resistance. And they documented their testimony, and they gave me unbelievable detailed information that have been lost forever without their research. So I owe them a huge debt. I could have written the book without their help, because when I was writing the book, I would think to myself, people are going to read this and go, wait a minute, how does this guy know this detailed information about events that took place 70 years ago? Um, but it's all based on firsthand testimony by the people who were involved in the events that took place. Yeah, I was so blessed and so fortunate to have so much information about the book. I mean, I had to write a book.
Hmm. And it's a good thing you did. I mean, one of the stories you remember you telling me that you were at one of the air shows, and it was an air show, and you had a table or an exhibit or something there. I haven't been in an air show to look at exhibits before, so I wouldn't know how those are set up. But a young boy kept coming back to you. And you can correct me. I'm jogging a little bit. It kept coming back and said, "This is the book I want," and it was your book. Do you remember that story at all?
Yeah, I'll tell you a couple stories. One, yeah, that was at the World War II Museum Air Show down in
Uh-huh.
New Orleans.
Okay.
And this little kid, I forget how old he was, maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's World War II buff, reads all these books, and he comes up to me like challenges me, like, why should I read your book? How do I know it's any good? And he really took me back. And so I was talking to him, and he goes, well, I'll think about it. And then he came back a little later, and he goes, I've decided I'm gonna read your book. I'm gonna bought you, and he bought it with his own money. That's why he was, so cautious.
Mhm.
Another time, though, this is really was a neat little experience. As I was at Oshkosh Air Adventure in Wisconsin, which is the biggest air show in the world. It's incredible. This
I
year,
didn't know that.
this
Whoa.
year it lasts for a week. Over 600,000 people go to that.
Wow.
But this little boy came up to me one year, and he says, "I bought your book last year, and your book is my absolute favorite book, and you are my favorite author." You know, little
Oh,
things like that are just fantastic because
that is fabulous.
we're so pleased when the younger generations and little boys as young as 5 or 6, would read it. And it's always just terrific to see the younger generations want to learn about history and World War II.
Hmm. Well, I think what's very cool about your book in general is it really gives, because of the detailed journals that your dad did and all the letters your mother saved, and then the input from those in Belgium who are actually involved that have, become friends, there, or the children of some of these people now,
Right.
um, that it really is a gritty, true to life. This is what was going on. I think that's what makes it powerful. And every once in a while, when I think about World War II, I said, "Oh, John," to my John, and I'll say, I think it was time to rewatch Gary Oldman's movie on World War II and the D-Day deal. Just that kind of thing, the build up to remind you. And I know some of that I've shared with my listeners before that I actually have a oil painting that was gifted to me by a mom whose husband was killed in the camps and that, and she just wanted me to have this oil painting that the Nazis had stolen and then returned to. She eventually got it back in the monument land type of thing. And she just said, "You've always loved flowers, and I just want you to have this for your 50th birthday
Oh,
years ago."
cool.
So I hang it in, and I don't know if Steve, if you've ever saw it, but it hangs as you walk in the door. And what the Nazis did is a lot of times for the painters is they would darken out, erase kind of with paint, whatever the background of the paint was, and they would black it out, and then they would paint in another name on top of it.
Oh, oh, okay.
Yeah. And so my friend's mom said, she said, you might want to go down to a museum and maybe kind of dig down and we can find out who this artist is. And I've chosen never to do that because I just want to be reminded that that wasn't that long ago. So my
Oh,
side story.
good story.
Yeah, my side story. Well, let's talk about your journey. So you published the book. What year did we publish this?
2014 in August, because I was going over to Belgium for the uh
Yes.
that would be the was it the 70th? Yeah, the 70th
The
anniversary
70th. Yeah.
of
And you took like 50,
my
you
dad's
took
plane being shot down.
and you took like 50 books with you or something. You were
Well,
carrying
not
books.
quite that many, because
Okay.
at that time I only had the hardcover book, which they get pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So I brought some with me, some to give to a lot of to Belgian people who helped me write the book. And then so that's why I was on a kind of a timetable to get that done, which we did just barely, but and so yeah, we kind of rolled it out there, and then I started just on that journey to I entered a bunch of contests, book
Over
awards,
20 of them. Yeah, over 20
and
of them.
I contacted all these different magazines or online magazines that did reviews of books, not just military reviewers, but like Book Life and a bunch of other ones, and was successful in getting reviews, and that helped a lot. And then just started, getting on the internet and contacting people and setting up presentations to make, uh, and I'm very active in World War II aviation history. I'm the president of the 306 Bomb Group Historical Association. My dad was in the 306 Bomb Group, and I'm on the board of directors of the 8th Air Force Historical Society. And so I have lots of contacts through that, because in the 8th Air Force, there were over 40 bomb groups, and they all have Facebook pages. So I was very active on Facebook, contacting people and promoting the book on Facebook, which I
How
got
many of, yeah,
which
how
I
many of,
got kicked off of for a while.
oh, too much action, huh?
No, I post a lot of historical about historical events, and a lot of them were World War II events. And in talking about World War II and the air war of Europe, I would use of course the word Nazi or Hitler,
Yeah, yeah.
and Facebook or Meta said I was spreading hate, and they
Hmm.
shut down my Facebook page, even though it was just, history. I was just posting about history. I wasn't commenting on it. I would just say this event took place, on this date.
Hmm.
So,
And how did they welcome you back?
well,
What?
I had to start a new profile all over again, which is a big pain in the neck.
Yeah,
I didn't do it for about a year. I was kind of upset,
picked.
and so then
Yes.
I transferred to the LinkedIn, which is actually a blessing in disguise, because the LinkedIn audiences are totally different than Facebook audiences.
Mm-hmm. Very.
Very, and it opened up a whole new avenue to contact people, and really that's how
Hmm.
I got this book deal, is through a contact on LinkedIn. Um,
I know. So let's talk about this. What's going. So I have everyone, I have a little press release that came out from Sam Houston. And it's the headline is Sam Houston to produce World War II drama shot down. So what was it like to was it a phone call or an email that started it?
well, I connected with Steve Hill,
Hmm.
who's the executive director uh,
Hmm.
or CEO of Sam Houston Southwest Film Investment Fund. And he goes, "Gosh, this sounds like a really interesting story." His dad happened to be a bomber pilot during World
Ah,
War. And he
ah.
goes, "This sounds pretty interesting. We fund films and make films, produce films. We might be interested in this. Send me a copy of the book," which I did, and I didn't hear from him for several months. I totally forgot about it. And then he gave me a call, 2 or 3 months later, and go, "We've read your book, myself and our screenwriter, and we absolutely love the book. We're seriously thinking about this." And I go, "Great." And then I didn't hear from him for a few more months. Totally forgot about it again. And then he called me up and said, we're going ahead with this. We want to make it into a movie. We're going to send you an option purchase agreement, run it by an attorney, and then get back to me, and we'll sign it and start the process." Fortunately, my youngest son, Clayton, is married to an actress. Allegra Edwards is her name. The fourth season of a show that she's on called Upload is going to be starting on Amazon again fairly soon.
Mm,
So
nice.
I contacted her theatrical,
Attorney. Yeah.
sent it to him, and he goes, "Well, this is kind of pretty much boilerplate, but you can do better than this." And it's like, oh, he goes, "Let me talk to him." And so I said, "Okay." And so yeah, he talked to Sam Houston, and for lack of a better word, got me a better deal. And so then we signed the contracts, and then we had our first Zoom meeting with my son Clayton, because he was really involved in the 306 bomb group, and
Mhm.
been over to
Great.
Belgium several times.
Well, yeah.
And so the two of us met with Steve Hill, and then Steve John Whitwinder, the screenwriter, and talked about it, the process and so forth. And we left it that Clay and I were going to collaborate with the screenwriter to write the treatment, and then from the treatment he'll write the screenplay, and then they have to find a director and get a cast, and so on and so forth. So that's
So,
that process worked.
so who do you see playing your dad?
Well, years ago we thought it.
Your dream guy.
My son was also an actor,
Oh,
but he's been out of the film business for quite a while. But I don't know. I don't know actors that well. The most of the famous action actors are too old to play my dad, because they're in their 30s or 40s or whatever. So we'll
mhm.
see who they get. They want to try to get an list actor, but we'll see. But I'm hoping my daughter-in-law Allegra can be in it, because she's ongoing actor, and she's real good. And then maybe Clay can just get some uh,
A little walk on.
little short role, and then maybe I can get a cameo in the background or something, sitting having drinking a beer or something.
Oh, that'd be so much fun.
Like Alfred Hitchcock used to do in his movie, have a little walkthrough or a little cameo.
Well, tell me, Steve, about uh, the timelines. I mean, I remember years ago I helped raise money for a movie that Melvin Douglas was starred in, and did that kind of stuff. But what kind of timeline when they talk to you? Because when I read about Sam Houston, they really do have monies. They finance and carry it through.
Yeah, they can either finance it themselves, or they can
Mhm.
shop it
And
and
get partners in.
get partners in. So,
Mhm.
once they have the screenplay finalized, and they got a director, and
Yeah,
the budgeting and locations, and
yeah.
they'll film a lot of it in Texas, because they have good tax incentives and breaks in Texas, but probably some in England, a little bit in England, and maybe hopefully, we'll go over to Belgium too to film. And so, it's hard to say. It could be 3 years before they even start filming. It's going to take months to
Mm,
write a screenplay. Um, so
mhm.
and how fast or how quickly they can attract, a director and then actors. So it could be quite a while before this really gets going, and the big thing is when you start filming. That's when it really gets exciting.
Oh yeah, you get to go on. I suspect you'll be spending some time in Texas, or maybe you'll go over to Belgium.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's really exciting. It's exciting. And then your option. So usually in an option, they have to do something within a certain period of time. Yeah, there's a time frame within there.
3 years,
You get 3 years, they got to get the show on the road somehow.
right? The attorney, the theatrical attorney, he would have rather seen 2 years, but he got some other things in the contract that, if it is a success, that benefit me. So
Hmm.
they have 3 years to start filming. So it could be 3 years. Hopefully it'll be a little less than that, but who knows?
Well, it depends upon how the rewrites go. I think that's going to be starting to propel it. And is that when they start shopping around for the actors who they They have to have the screenplay written, or do they give them the
Yeah,
book? Read this book. We're gonna do it.
yeah, the screenplay will probably go through some rewrites, and then you give it to, first you hire a director, and then the director can, change the script or the screenplay as well, which they usually do.
Hmm.
Um, and then from there, it's casting and, finding actors to play. Well, first, part of the treatment is like, well, who's going to be in the movie? Obviously my dad's the main character, but you have to include some of the crew. So which members of the crew and how much you're going to follow them. Because, ideally, because of the story and there's so many people involved in different storylines, it would have been better to be a limited series, but they just intend to make it into like a regular feature length movie. So you have to be judicious on how much time you spend on other things, because my dad's story is the main thread, and then whether they're talking about, my dad wrote all these letters home back to my mother, and there's a lot of romance involved in that, and then is my mother Ruth going to be a small character in the play as she reads these letters, or so we have to decide on who's gonna be in the movie, whether they even bring in the Luftwaffe pilot that shot down my dad, whether they bring him in a little bit or leave him out, or so there's a lot of things to be decided for the storyline before the screenplay can even be written.
Mm. Well, it's exciting. I was
It's very
excited.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I I was excited, and yeah, it takes time, but people don't realize that.
Well, I know I
It
get asked, oh, well, when is it going to come out? It's like, well,
Yeah,
they just they don't understand how the movie business, entertainment business works.
or they decide that I mean I'm sure you heard from a lot of people that your book should be a movie,
Right. Yeah.
and I can't tell you how many authors think their books should be a
Oh,
movie.
everyone thinks, because
Just about.
I've told people already that I signed this deal, and then people that have written a book, they go, oh, can you connect me with them? Or, oh yeah, my book would be a great movie. And
uh
it's not that easy.
yeah. Well, does Sam Houston specialize in these kind of movies, or are they all over the map?
They're pretty much all over the map, but
There.
more nonfiction, I think, based on, they like book storylines that based on true stories,
Hmm.
not fictional history.
Mm. Oh, yeah, and there's a lot of it. Right. So, Steve, what are think about your highlights. What are some of the unusual things? We heard about the little boy, which I always loved that story. I remember that when you told me that came back, the 8 or 9 year old at the time. What anything unusual happened, surprise when you, for example, when you first went to Belgium and started connecting with people?
Oh, well, every time I've been to Belgium 8 times, and every time I go, I learn something new.
Oh,
I was just there this last June, and Jacques Lelot, one of the Belgian men, he has a birthday coming up. He 89 tomorrow. But he did lots of research. I met him, and he found another farmhouse that my dad stayed in before he crossed over the Belgium-French border to join the French resistance.
oh, ooh, okay.
So, I learned th that's something. Every time I go there, I learn something new. So it's fascinating.
Mm,
Um, and one of the great things that this took place in southern Belgium, just north of the French border, where they speak French. And it's all rural farmland, and it hasn't changed in hundreds and hundreds of years. So all these houses and farmhouses and locations where the story took place are still there today. So you can go visit where history took place. I've been in rooms where my dad was hidden in farmhouses and different places, and where other uh, events took place involving my other members of my dad's crew. And so it's really
mm,
emotional going over there when you see this is where this man was killed, or this is where this man was captured, um, or this is where they stayed, or this is where their plane came down. So it's, I love going to Belgium. I could go there every year, I've made so many friends over there. But getting back to one of the things that, just discovered, all my dad knew and all the Air Force knew is that he was attacked by 2 German fighters. And that's
Mm-hmm.
all I thought I'd ever know. But one day when I was doing research, my wife Glenda said, well, why don't you try to find the German pilot that shot your dad down? And I'm thinking, oh gosh, she means well, but she's naive. She has no idea what she's talking about. It'd be awesome. But like a good husband, I did what she told me to do, and I
As
found,
you should. As you
as
should.
I should, and I found Hans Berger, and fortunately for me, became a translator after the war and could speak perfect English. And I found out from Hans Berger that the gunners on my dad's plane shot him down at the same time he shot my dad down. They shot each other down, and he bailed out and made it through the war.
Mm.
And I was so amazed and so excited to find him and interview him for the book. He gave me some wonderful information about what it was like to go up against the 8th Air Force. For the book, I just interviewed him over the telephone and through email.
Mm-hmm.
And I just bombarded him with these questions. At one time, he goes, Steve, I really don't know you that well, and you're asking me all these personal questions. But I built up his trust, and we developed kind of a long, distance friendship. And then on 2 of the occasions that I went to Belgium, I continued on to Munich, Germany, to meet him and spend some time with him and have lunch. And we
Mm-hmm.
developed a good rapport. I went back for the 80th anniversary this last fall, 2024, and I'd hoped to see him one more time, but unfortunately he died in January
Mm.
of 2024 at age 100. So I didn't get
Wow.
one last time, but I feel so fortunate that I got to meet him and know him, and learn about him. And a lot of people ask me, well, don't you hate this guy that shot down your dad's plane? But I felt a real affinity and kinship for him because, at one point in time, his life and my dad's life crossed paths. So he's part of my dad's life and part of my dad's story. And my dad would have loved to have met him, but unfortunately, my dad
Yeah.
passed away already. I mean, that would have been great just to be a fly on the wall and listen to those 2 guys talk.
Ah.
Hans Berger said, it was unfortunate we had to be shooting at each other, but that was war. We were trying to do a job and, trying to fight for our country. So,
Mm. I remember that story. I was hoping that was the one you were going to tell me. Tell us that. And I remember that because it's so unique. And in fact, they both shot each other down, which
right.
is also, I mean, where did he land?
He
How
came
did
down
he
to
get
Belgium,
rescued?
but Belgium was occupied by the Germans then.
Ah,
So, the Germans, picked him
we're
up.
glad to save him.
Yeah. And then, take him back, send him back to his base to fly more missions. He was shot down 3 times. So he was a miracle. Almost all his friends were killed during the war, so it was a miracle that he survived.
My goodness. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Steve, let's talk about, I mean, you became a master researcher. And can you give, I think that you would be a good person to give tips. I mean, we're talking about a biography, everyone. Steve did a biography, but research comes in all kinds of different directions and elements. Uh, what kind of advice would you give to an author who is going to need to do some research, or maybe they don't need that? Maybe they don't know they need to do research. Where do you start?
Well, that's a good point you make about knowing or not whether you need research, because uh, one thing that I don't know if anyone would do this, but I was writing the book and taking information from my dad's letters. My dad would mention these things.
Mhm.
Uh, and I go, well, I don't really know much about that. Maybe, so rather than just commenting on, uh, there is a radio show, I'll just give you an example. I forget the guy's first name. His last name was Waring. and he had a radio show that was real popular at the time. And so I researched this and ended up, he was the guy that invented the wearing blender.
Mhm.
And little tidbits like this. One of the things my wife said that she never knew what GI meant, because you hear about GIs,
Mhm.
and it originally meant galvanized iron, because that's what the Army purchased a lot of their material. And then it kind of morphed into government issue, not just iron, but anything that was provided to the Army was called government issue. And then
Mhm.
the soldiers just became known as GIs. It kept,
Government issued.
yeah, in a sense. And so my wife said, "Yeah, I never knew that before." And there was lots of little tidbits like this. I go, "That I don't know about that, but maybe people who would be reading this would be interested." And so I researched all this stuff, and I think that adds, kind of anecdotes surrounding the war that put it in interest. That, it's not, because when I wrote the book, I didn't want it just to appeal to World War II, you know, historians,
Aficionados,
or,
right, right.
I
Yeah.
wanted it to appeal to a general audience, people that really didn't know much at all about World War II or the air war over Europe,
Hmm.
or really had even an interest in it.
Hmm.
I wanted to be a more historical book, and I just wanted to not only attract male readers, but female readers too. And so I wrote it with that in mind, just not being a war book per se.
Hmm. Hmm. Did you do the for your audiobook, did you do the narration or did you have someone do that?
Well, I should have had my son Clayton do it, because that's what he was acting, and that would have been great to have, the
Oh
grandson,
yeah.
do it. 'Cause he has a very good voice, and
Yeah.
knows how to project. But
Yeah.
no, Richard Riemann out of
Uh-huh.
Colorado did it.
Richard did it. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he
Well,
did a good
he
job.
yeah, and Richard, for those of you who don't know him, Richard not only is an author himself, but he was my coach when I went into the studio. When I was in the studio doing my books, Richard was with me
Oh.
always. And and I'll never forget the time he sent me home, Steve. I got sent home, bad girl, because I don't
Actually, that doesn't surprise me, Judith.
I don't eat breakfast. I have tea in the morning and maybe I'll eat lunch. But the mics are so sensitive in these studios that I got sent home because that they overtook the recording and my stomach was a participant.
Oh,
So we had to release the day. We released the morning, and then I came back the next day. And so I always tell people, make sure you at least have some yogurt or something. So there's something in your belly because it will chime in. And I was in a recording studio that bands were recorded in. There was that singing was recorded there. Those mics are so freaking sensitive.
yep.
Um, and they do pick up the breathing and all that. But Richard was at my side for I can't remember how many books that I did the narration on myself. And then he was kind of like the producer. So he would stop me. Okay, I want you to just do the line over again. Do the line over again. And then we had an engineer. So I'm in a closed studio, and then Richard and the engineer. So we would come out in 2 days. We always had the book done on that. But what Steve did is he had Richard do the reading, the narration of it
Yeah,
instead
it,
of
it
his
was
own.
it was a challenge for him, because there's so many German words and French words uh, in the story, and
Yeah.
names. So he had to. It took us a while. I'd have to teach him how to pronounce some of these Belgian people's names, because
Oh yeah.
if you just look at it and pronounce it like an English language, that it's totally different.
Hmm.
So that was a challenge for him, but he did a real good job. But I
Well,
should
it's
have had
good.
my son do it, but that's water under the bridge.
Well, you can always do it again. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. People ask me, are you going to write another book? And I go, no, it's too much work. I can't go through another 4.5 years of that, because that was 4.5 years from getting up at like 5 in the morning and then getting Glenda to call me for dinner at 6 at night. I mean, it was just heads down research and
it was
writing.
a grind.
It
Yep.
was grind, but that was my passion. So I had the inspiration to do it.
Yeah.
Another thing I've been so fortunate is that going to all these air shows and doing all these speaking engagements. I've met so many people all around the United States and developed friendships. Plus, as you alluded to, in England and in Belgium and the Netherlands.
Mhm.
So that my wife's always amazed how many people I know every place we go. But I mean, that's really been fun too. Um, and I help a lot of people learn who had a veteran in the 8th Air Force,
Mhm.
because most of these guys didn't talk about it. And so, younger the cousins or grands,
They don't.
they don't know anything.
Don't talk about it.
And so if I'll try to help them out and do some research for them, give them
Mhm.
information about their vet. But another great compliment I get from people who read the book is to go, my dad never talked about this, but reading your book gave me appreciation for what he went through. Because as I alluded to, it talks about what training was like, what life was like on the air base, you know, going into the local towns and the pubs and interacting with the locals and the English girls and bombing missions. So it kind of gives you the whole gamut of the experience of a man that was in the airman that was in the 8th Air Force during World War.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, it's an amazing read, everyone. So you can get it in audio, and you can get it in ebook, or you can get it in the old paper, which is my style. And just I'm going to go down and dig it because mine is in the downstairs conference room, and I'm going to go and pull it out because I think John would like to reread it again, and in doing that. But before we have just like 3 minutes here. So I'd love to have you, you are going to be a one book pony. I always knew that
Yeah.
you were, and it was my pleasure to be by your side as this baby got birthed. It
Well, I
evolved and
I
birthed.
wanted it to do it the right way,
Oh, thank you.
and
Yeah.
something that would be for professional, and because I wanted this to be read, and I was fortunate to hook up with you, and with all your guidance, really, helped me to achieve that goal.
Thank you. Yep, we did it. It did it, and it's a wonderful book. So I would encourage all of you that one of the things that Steve said reinforce it is loaded with stories. The power of this book is the storytelling throughout. So you become there. It's like when I said at the opening, when I was working on that opening scene, and he's shot down and he's going down, I could feel the flames around my throat. I could feel the scarf burning on it,
Yeah,
on that.
also, there's all these excerpts from letters, just not from my dad, but after the plane went down and all the crew was missing in action, there's excerpts of letters from the
Yep.
mothers, the wives, the sweethearts. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
really moving, and how worried and praying they were all doing, that these guys would be saved and they come back home. So
Yep.
that's
I,
poignant.
I think I think as you wrapped it, you were such a great example of a bestseller. A lot of people, I'm always amused when people are going to write their life stories when they're 25 years old, and I want to say gag me. That here is Steve didn't start writing until he retired, and he created a bestseller. It's now going, it's optioned for a movie. It's got over 2,000 reviews on Amazon. I think Steve is a great example of showing actually patience and persistence and having a vision for his book as an author, and cheerleading for his dad. So, Steve, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. It's always fun interacting with you, Judith.
I know we always have fun. All right, Steve Snyder is the author. The book is Shot Down. Go get it and see how a well-researched book grabs the emotion and is put together. We'll be back with you next week. I'm Judith Riles. It's Author You, Your Guide to Book Publishing, and keep on writing.
Thank you.